right? Yes. Hello. Good morning. Thank you all for making the drive from wherever you did. And we're going to get to where you came from in a second. But I'm really glad that you are here today. And on behalf of TENS, thank you for your work in stewardship. It is often thankless work that we do in our churches. And I want you to know that you are deeply appreciated by your church, whether they tell you or not. They love you. My name is Davey. I'm the executive director of TENS. And we're going to get started here in a minute. We've got some welcome from some of our on-the-ground folks here in the Diocese of Michigan. So if you don't know Ellen, here's Ellen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ellen Ekevog. You do not need to pronounce my last name. Ellen is just fine. Yeah, I know, it's scary. It's scary. I am the canon to the ordinary here in the Diocese of Michigan, and first off, thank you to Cranbrook for hosting. Big applause for our TENS board. I'm just so thankful for your work and the way that it helps our churches thrive. I'm just deeply grateful all of you are here, and just welcome to the Diocese of Michigan.
Thank you. And I just want to take a moment to thank the members of our stewardship committee who have been doing the hosting today. We've been busy cooking chili, and there's a little chili cook-off competition going on behind the scenes. So we're going to be interested in your votes at some point. I don't know how we're going to marshal that, but yeah, enjoy. Let me just say, I am really appreciative of this regional conference. When I was on the board of TENS, one of the good decisions we made was to move away from the big annual conference every year. That was at a big fancy hotel. That was really beautiful. It was like 3 days. It was very expensive though. And so a lot of churches really couldn't attend, much less send their whole team, much less send their stewardship committee or their vestry. And so one of the moves we made was to go away from that model and instead embrace this kind of more smaller, shorter, cheaper, more nimble regional conferences, regional workshops where there would actually be an opportunity to bring your team. So I was delighted to host one of those as that vision comes to life. The other good decision we made was hiring this gentleman who has been such a light to TENS. So thank you, Davey, really, for all the work you do around the country. It makes such an impact. So shall we pray? All right. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Wow, gracious God, we give thanks for this day. We give thanks for the beautiful day you have made in all of its coldness, in all of its ice. We give thanks that those who have made it here in one piece. And we give thanks for this conversation we're about to have. We give thanks for the Board of TENS, for their passion, for their generosity. We give thanks for all those here, for your hopes, for your congregations. And we give thanks for the power of story. You come to us through the power of story, and it is in that stories, the stories that we have in our congregations, that we shine our light. And that light is your light. That light has a power to change lives and to transform communities and to lift up and inspire churches. So we give thanks for this conversation we're about to have about how we can share our story, how we can share your light. We ask for all of these things. We ask for you to bless this conversation, bless the presenters, open our hearts, open our minds, so that we might hear what we need to hear, so that we can have the courage to do what you give us to do. We ask for all these things in your blessed Son's name. Amen.
Thank you, Chris. Well, welcome. And we're still expecting a couple more folks. That's great. We've got plenty of time, and we have space. Like typical Episcopalians, the front row is open for the late arrivers, so we'll make sure that they get a seat. Washrooms, if you're from Canada, or restrooms, if you're not, are through that door there, so you'll find them over there. And so please use those as you need to. We are all adults. We can not have to wait for the break. We have beverages, hot, cold, caffeinated, sugared, water, all kinds of things. So make sure that you stay hydrated. We've also got bagels. I saw some scones arrive. All kinds of great things. And again, thanks to the folks at Christ Church Cranbrook for taking really good care of all of us. They make this possible, this done-in-a-day regional conference, which we can offer for free because they've given all of this for free. That's called good stewardship. It's a really beautiful thing, and we really appreciate that. So as you see the folks who are working, they've got aprons on. Make sure you say thank you for the work that they're doing and for the great chili. I mean, what's stewardship without some healthy competition? So we will do our best to judge your chili accordingly. Thank you for that. TENS has been here for a couple of days. We had our annual board retreat and board meeting where we set out our agenda for the year. And then, we tag this on to the end of our board retreat. And it's a really beautiful opportunity for us to gather as just our board and talk about what we think the church wants, and then to experiment on all of you and see if that's true. So thank you for being a part of that. One of the things that TENS has been doing for the past few years is moving in the direction of storytelling. As Chris talked about in his morning invocation, story is where we encounter each other in relationships. It's where we encounter the divine. It's where we engage the ancient story of our faith. By telling these stories, we make it real, we make it present, we make it ever-changing and ever-contextual. So we'll be talking a lot about story today. And through our materials this year, we'll stay in touch with you about stories. So to do that, we've got some storytelling. To start off, I want to share with you our agenda so that you all know what we're doing, and then we're going to do some quick welcome and introduction work. So right now we are at the first part of our agenda where we are welcoming and introducing. We'll have 3 sessions today. The first will be before lunch, so after we finish our introductions, we'll talk about best practices, how to fund your ministry. This is the brass tacks, how to run a really good campaign, how to talk about money in church, and we'll have a little breakout session where we're going to give you a chance to practice that. Then about 12:30, we'll have lunch, the aforementioned chili and other goodies. After that, we'll take a little break. Hopefully you'll get some refreshment and come back, and we'll have 2 sessions in the afternoon where we talk about our constituencies, who are our members, and how do we maximize member engagement, reminding ourselves that we are the good news. And then we'll be talking this later this afternoon about making your plan. We didn't want to send you out of here without an opportunity for you to do some plan making, whether you are here on your own representing your church or you brought a team. We want to give you some tools and a chance to talk in community about what you're taking from this and what you might take on next. So that's what we're going to be doing and spending our time on today. So we're going to introduce ourselves because, we all need to know who you are, and we'd like you to know who each other is. But there are a lot of us and not a lot of time. So that's why they are 30-second introductions. So, if you go to 31 seconds, no one's going to buzz. This isn't the Oscars. We don't start the music. But we'd like you to let us know who you are, where you're from, what you do in your congregation or other ministry. Let us know if you are an intermediate or a beginner or a veteran stewardship person. That's going to help us know how to break you up into small groups because we're going to do that based on that. If you have time, and you haven't spent a whole lot of time giving us your name and everything else, tell us maybe one challenge that you're facing, just one word or a quickie little synopsis, and then maybe some good news that you'd like to share, one word of hope for us. We've got microphones, and so I'm going to start it off and hand the microphone to someone, and you just pass it off to whoever you think should go next, and we'll do it that way. My name is Davey, and I'm from San Francisco, but I really originally came from this place. I grew up in Troy, spent some of my adolescent years in this community. It's a long story. And then moved out to the West Coast. I love my work with TENS. I'm also the canon for stewardship for the Diocese of California, so I get to see this happen in our congregations in the Bay Area. I don't know if I think I'm an intermediate stewardship guy. I don't know if I'm a veteran yet. Maybe one day I'll get there. I think the challenge that I face is the Episcopal Church, our theology, our work, we have so many good things that we are doing. We struggle to let other people know what we are doing and what that story is and how they can be a part of it. So that's my challenge. I see the challenge all around me, and it's one of the things that I hope by engaging storytelling we can do. And that's also the hope. That's the model. That's the introduction. So I'm going to start with you. Right? You didn't know that.
Yeah, I was guessing. I'm Don Wiggins from the Cathedral. I've done a lot. I've been there a long time. I've done it all. And as far as stewardship is concerned, I'm somewhere between intermediate and veteran because I've done it many times. If I were a veteran, though, I'd have more good ideas than I do. Challenge is how to meet the budget. Our expenses just keep climbing, and the pledges are not able to keep up. Good news is that the fellow next to me is very enthusiastic about stewardship, ready to take my place.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joe Poisson. I am at the Cathedral. I've been there about 5 years now, and I serve on stewardship and vestry. It's such a gift to be at the Cathedral. Right now, we're in our transition period, so we've had a bit of a not struggle, but working with the chapter and the vestry, like communicating with each other, and I know that we're going to have an amazing dean. Thank you, Ellen, for being part of our transition as well. And so I also am very happy to be involved during worship, like lector, intercessor, Eucharistic minister, and usher. So thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Macheski. I am at St. John Royal Oak. I am on vestry and the finance committee. I'm probably a beginner in stewardship. However, I spent my career as an executive director of nonprofits, so fundraising is nothing new to me. I think one of the challenges we face is how do you unleash generosity beyond the traditional stewardship campaign and the capital campaign. There's lots of little things that can be funded if we just unleash that generosity. Word of hope, it's a beautiful day, and you know, the Episcopal Church is looking pretty good in the national media. There's that.
I'm Marie Donegan, also at St. John's Royal Oak. I've been there since birth, and except for college years. But so I've done everything, but on vestry and all of that. Currently, I'm an usher. I am chair of the maintenance committee, or will soon be officially chair of the maintenance committee, specializing in water intrusion.
She's very good at it.
Stopping the water from intruding. And then I also oversee our native plant gardens. That's what I do mostly, is I garden and stop water from coming in the building. I would consider myself an intermediate, maybe. I don't know, maybe. We're also in transition, as she said. Beth Taylor just, left for Colorado, and so we're getting a new, priest. And so that's kind of a challenge. And also, word of hope. I heard this last night. We were talking about adult formations and stuff, and we really want to focus on community.
My name is Rachel Andrews. I am also with St. John's Royal Oak. I have been at St. John's for about 18 years, and I've done almost everything except for stewardship. I'm a beginner at stewardship. Currently, I am the chair of this Faith and Justice group. that Marie is on with me. And I am a lector and Eucharistic minister and troublemaker. So the challenge we face, I think the biggest challenge we face right now is the fact that Beth just left. And we're facing a whole world of unknown right now, which is also a word of hope. As much as I love Beth, we're going into some exciting times. And we're a very vibrant and lively parish. And I think this is a good time for us.
I'm Julia. I'm the rector at Trinity in the Woods, Farmington Hills, not too far from here. And I'm also currently serving on the standing committee of the diocese. I'd say intermediate. I've been doing this. I had a career as a church musician before I became a priest. So ever since I was ordained, I've been doing this stuff to some degree. I'd say a challenge we face is unleashing the generosity. Our people are really good at special things and tangible, things that we ask for. But just to help them be even more generous with the mundane day-to-day operating budget, I think might be a challenge we have. And a word of hope is that we're a really strong, healthy, family-sized church, and we're doing well.
I'm Teresa Joaquin. I'm a church planter in Detroit. I got the wild idea to start a ministry in 2008 when I started volunteering at the social service agency there, and all this faith just walked in the doors. And it wasn't until I got to CDSP I had met Davey and heard that that call continue, and I knew I needed to come back and start this. So we're in our 9th year. And the big thing is, figuring out how that foundational funding is going to run, because I want this to completely outlast me, and I know God is faithful. And what we're really finding is that the more we go out, even though we're in the neighborhood, we need to walk in the neighborhood, meet people, hear their stories, and that's what we're doing, asset-based community development. And we have a little seed money to start that project, so I could keep talking, so I won't. But anyhow, sorry, here you go. Do I stand up?
Okay. I'm Sharon Zaschlag. I've led stewardship at Trinity in Farmington Hills here in Michigan for longer than I can remember, I think. I think I want to call myself somewhere between veteran and out of ideas, so I'm looking forward to coming here and getting a little renewed and refreshed. I think another challenge we're facing is just the congregation is aging out, so to speak. So I think that's one of our biggest challenges. And then a word of hope. One of the talks that Bishop Bonnie of Michigan sent out on her video in the last couple weeks, she called us the other Christians, and I really liked that, and I've been chewing on that. And I don't know if that's, part of me thinks, is that kind of like mean, or is that kind of, dissing? But at the same time, having raised kids who seem to have heard the more other side of Christianity, even more than the one I raised them in, I think I like that saying, we're the other Christians. I think that's good news.
Good morning. I'm Ann Campbell from Trinity Farmington Hills, and I have been a member of Trinity in a couple of different phases, but for about 40 years. So I have a really strong connection there and have done many different roles. Right now I'm the senior warden. Sharon is our previous senior warden, and I feel very lucky to be able to work with Sharon and Julia and our vestry. I also was the co-chair of the capital campaign. We had a very successful capital campaign that is now wrapped up. Very happy about that. And we have done a lot of really interesting things with stewardship. Sharon's a great leader. My first experience with stewardship was with TENS about 25 years ago in Washington, D.C. And I was telling Teresa earlier that that's where I met Jose Habde and Mark McDonald. And it was like a come to Jesus moment, like, oh, stewardship is, yes, that's where it's at. And from that point on, my husband and I really embraced being stewardship chairs at our church at that time. So I would say I'm an intermediate, but there's a lot of good stuff that comes out of TENS that helps to put together a really good program. So I think you heard about some of our challenges. And I also think we've got to find a way to make church exciting and a priority for families with, kids, because we are aging, and we aren't a priority for a lot of these families. Their lives are busy, and their plates are full. We've got to find a way to make a path for them to come through our door every Sunday, not just twice a year or whatever. So, and that's the hope too.
People. I'm Marilyn Hester. I am from St. Mary's in the Hills, and I've been a member there for 27 years, and this is my third time around on the vestry. I've been with the stewardship even when I wasn't on the vestry for about 9 years, or for 9 stewardship times. And so intermediate veteran, I guess, because I've been successful, I've not been successful, and the challenge as we face it is the community outreach. We are really trying to figure out what our community needs and the things that we need to reach out and help the community and how to bring them into our community. And the word of hope is, let's hope that we can do this all through prayer and through community.
I'm also with St. Mary's in the Hill in Lake Orion. Contrary to the gray hair, I'm the newbie. Marilyn's showing me the path due to the Episcopal way. And so I'm kind of a convert, and I'm happy to be here, shine among you, as well as be a part of it. And grateful.
Hello, I'm Chris Ventura. I'm with St. John's of Plymouth. Also, I am the newly appointed CFO of the diocese. Thank you. I need that. I need that uplifting. It's a great team to work with, for sure. I'm a beginner in stewardship. I think the challenge we all face, right, is just the times we live in, which is also an opportunity, right? There's clearly a need for what the Episcopal Church can offer, and through a good stewardship campaign telling our story, we can definitely get out there and get people to come in and give them, the nourishment that they're really seeking out there. There's people that don't really know they need us, and we need to convince them that we're there for them, and it's going to work out for everybody if we can do something like that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Wagaman. I'm a parishioner at St. James, Birmingham. I just finished my second tour of duty on the vestry. I also have the pleasure of serving on diocesan council, and I'm going to get to work on budget with Chris, so that's going to be fantastic. Also recommend to all of you College for Congregational Development. I've had an opportunity to be associated with that, and that is a marvelous, marvelous opportunity. I've been doing stewardship and fundraising for 30 years. I also run a nonprofit, Bound Together. Hats off to Teresa for the work that she does in Detroit. Our work in Pontiac is similar, and so there's an opportunity to engage fundraising in almost every waking moment that I have. So I guess I've done it a long time, but every time I engage a new campaign, it's a new opportunity to bring something to the table. I think that the word of hope is I'm reminded of Ruby Sales, who describes herself as a civic theologian and tells us that the question that we always need to be asking is, where does it hurt? And that I think the Episcopal Church asks that question. It allows people to answer that question, and I think that we can share the solutions that we can bring to bear, and that is perhaps the greatest strength that we have as a faith tradition.
Perfect. My name's Carrie. I am from St. James, Worcester, which I'm sure nobody has heard of because we're in the Diocese of Ohio. So, I am the parish administrator. I also do all of their accounting. So, that's my tie to stewardship. I'd say I'm on the beginner side. Our challenge, we've had a pretty interesting past 8-9 years at our parish. The 2016, we're in a very rural area, so we're small to begin with. The 2016 election hit our parish pretty hard. It also coincided with our rector of 17 years announcing that she was transgender and transitioning. So that was a lot of upheaval. We did lose half of our parish during that time, so we're still rebuilding. Evan, our former rector, he retired after 25 years. So now we have a brand new priest. She came in as a deacon in charge a year ago and was ordained just over a year ago. So it's all new. And we have water incursion too, so.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Volker, interim priest in charge at St. Andrew's in Waterford. I'm a transplant from what used to be the Diocese of Eastern Michigan. I've been down here about 6 years doing supply and interim work. I would say I am probably at the intermediate level as far as stewardship is concerned. I have witnessed some extremely successful campaigns. And right now, the big challenge is that of leadership. They are right now firmly entrenched in the belief that sending out a letter with a pledge card is just fine. Unfortunately, you usually get what you ask for. We have a very generous congregation as far as donating of their time, of their money. It's amazing. But as far as stewardship goes, you know, you can't see a material thing from stewardship because it's called keeping the church open and running. So anyway, being new to that congregation, I did throw out some ideas in June, and then I went on vacation. And then when I came back a month later, I said, so how's the program going? Well, how's that stewardship committee that you were going to put together? Oh, I asked a couple people. Okay. Well, you can imagine the response that we got. A little lower than last year's, however. They will plod on and they will do well. But there's going to be a concerted effort this year, and that's why I'm here, to get some new ideas.
Hi, I'm Toby Dara. I am the curate at St. Clair's in Ann Arbor. I was just ordained this summer and started with them on July 1st. I'm very much a beginner at stewardship. One of the challenges that we'll be facing this year with our stewardship program is that we are also doing a capital campaign. So we want to also make sure that the stewardship for our operating budget does not take a nosedive while we're doing this. The word of hope around this is that there's a lot of energy in the congregation for doing this. We have people who are interested. and people who have stepped up to claim ownership as leaders of the capital campaign. Getting people to step up and claim leadership of the annual stewardship has been a little bit harder, but the energy is there, so the talent is there, and we're going to figure out how to make it work. Okay. I want to talk to you about people you know in California, too. I went to CDSP. We know some of the same people.
Good day. How are you doing? My name is Rebecca Morrison. Currently, I'm at All Saints Episcopal Church in Detroit. That's on 7 Mile. Y'all come down and visit us. That's the first thing we'd like to say. The second thing I'd like to say is I'm fairly new to this congregation. I've been an Episcopalian all my life. I've had the opportunity to belong to 2 good churches prior to coming here. At All Saints Episcopal Church, and we have older members. Our congregation's old, and they're very supportive. They don't have a lot of energy, but what they have, they're willing to give. And what we're looking for in terms of, this is my first time ever being on a stewardship committee. I've been in various roles throughout the Diocese of Michigan before it merged and then after it merged. So I've seen a lot of things, and I've had a lot of opportunities. But the one important thing that for smaller churches who are very old and trying to get new members, which we must say, we had 3 new members, well, not new members, but 3 new visitors, young, in their 20s, that came to the church, and they have been gung-ho in participating in everything. So we're hoping that that'll help the older people. The other thing is that, and I know your church has dealt with this problem, wanting to continue to do the same thing the same old way and hoping to get different results. And that's not possible. So part of my job is learning how stewardship works and looking at new techniques or ideas or approaches to get them to put that energy and commitment to this project. We have a capital project that we've been doing, and they've been working towards that. But now we want them to put some energy in terms of ownership. We want them to some of them to take responsibility. So that's my hope.
Good morning. I'm Juanita Woods, and I'm a member of All Saints Detroit. And as part of stewardship, I guess, probably the last 40 years. When I was at my old church, I was in charge of stewardship. When I went to All Saints about 13 years ago, I ended up in charge of stewardship. I guess that's just my forte, being in stewardship and being on the vestry. But I took a term off because now we're doing a capital campaign, as Rebecca said, that we're kicking off this year to do some really important renovations to the building that they had delayed maintenance for many, many years as we transitioned. And we've had our new clergy now, which is a partnership with 2 other congregations in the diocese this will be our 3rd year. So we've seen growth from that, which is very, very positive. And this year's 2025 stewardship campaign, we saw an increase in members giving, so that was really positive. And I think the challenge is to get people to understand how important it is to give of their time, not just their money. Time does a lot more than just the money. And so I believe if you give your time, you will recognize that you will give your money to help to do whatever ministries you're trying to do. So, and the positive word would be for me from there is hope.
Good morning. My name's Carrie Wilson. I'm from Holy Family down in Angola, Indiana. So, Diocese of Northern Indiana. I have been the stewardship chair since 2018. I'm also the parish administrator and the treasurer and any other hat they choose to give me, depending on the day. But it's the church I grew up in, and so I want it to be there for my children, just like it's always been there for me. So that's kind of where my motivation comes from. So beginner, intermediate, I don't know where you would put me, somewhere in there. A challenge we face, I mean, we have had a pretty steady maintenance of members and of pledges. And so we're trying to just kind of fight that apathetic, things are good, so they're going to keep staying good sort of thing. So, keep people engaged. And then also kind of figure out what our larger mission in our community is as a church as well as we grow. But the hope that I see is in my children every Sunday. So that's what I have.
I'm Mike Elledge. I'm with Christ Church Cranbrook here. I was in the youth program when I was 16. And after leaving and going around to different jobs in different cities, came back here. So I guess it's not been continuously, but I guess I've had an association with the church for 54 years, which doesn't seem possible at all. So I'm on stewardship. I have been on vestry. I've been in the choir for all that time since we came back in 2000. I'd say I'm probably a beginner. I mean, I'm always learning new things. There's always new things to think about. Challenges that we have here, we've just basically done back-to-back capital campaigns, and just closed out the first one, which helped bring this to you here for us, and because the church sort of ended on this wall before that campaign. And now we're in our 100th campaign, because in 2029 it'll be our 100th anniversary. So that seems to be going very well. But the challenge always seems to be how to, if you have momentum, to keep it going. And we're blessed with wonderful clergy, and that helps a lot. But I think the biggest challenge is to continue to get people to go beyond just pledging, and to become more involved in the activities of the church, because one of our priorities is to increase our outreach within the community, and that's always a challenge.
Good morning. My name is John Connors. No, I never met Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I have nothing to do with the Terminator movies, so we can put that aside. I am a priest. I was ordained in 1990. My entire career has been spent working as an interim with pastoral-sized parishes. I've been in and out of the church in various places. I was ordained in the Diocese of Fond du Lac, part of this can't think of the word I want. Anyway, part of this. I went to New York for seminary. My first interim was in the Diocese of East Carolina, where I'm still canonically resident, and I live in Michigan. I consider myself an intermediate in terms of stewardship, just having had to work with it for so many years, but I consider myself a beginner with tens. And I will be very honest with you, over many, many years, each year the tens packet would arrive, and I would look it over and just go, oh, this is just nonsense, and toss it away. And I did that regularly, until last year or so ago, when Chris Harris did a 3-part online series about understanding tens. And at the time, I had just taken on an interim in Nashville, Tennessee, and I got there in September, and they had made no plans for a stewardship campaign. So I listened to Chris's presentation, and I went, are you kidding me? This actually makes sense. I've missed that all these years. And I quickly made arrangements for 3 lay leaders from that parish to take Chris's course, and they got all excited and pulled off a fairly decent, although very quick, stewardship campaign. I left there in July, but I heard that this year the same people led the campaign using tens, and they had a 20% increase in their stewardship. So when this came up, I thought, well, it's 20 miles away, maybe I should go and try it again.
Hi, I'm Steve Steinberger Dominic. I'm the rector at Grace Church in Mount Clemens. Somewhere I've been doing stewardship in one way or another for the last 20 or so years. So sometimes it feels like you're a beginner, sometimes I'm an intermediate, sometimes a veteran. It just depends on the year, I suppose. So it's a constant process for me. Challenges we face. Fear is a big thing about how are we going to continue funding our programs, our mission, our congregation. Some folks are so entrenched in that and so afraid, and other people are like, don't worry about it, just keep going and we'll get this thing straight. But trying to get people on board, like you were saying, John, about inviting people to participate in programs like this or just a stewardship committee in general. So that's an ongoing challenge that I face. But the good news is that I've heard it before, hope. We still have folks that say, you know what, we build it, the money will come, let's not worry about it, let's keep doing what we're called to do. So that gives me courage and strength to keep going every day.
I'm Tish Germain from Grace Mount Clemens. I've been at Grace for, it's going to be 11 years when I got called back to come back to the, I've been on vestry way too many times. Was treasurer, stewardship committee, and now I'm a lay worship leader. Challenge I face is to get people excited. And so it's just, and I know a lot of it has to do with what's going on in the world. And our music director is the one that keeps me going with his little quirky ideals and like, just like he says, when you come into church, forget the outside world. And you got to do that every time you go, whatever you go into, and you go into home, that's your home. Forget about the outside world. And I used to be a news junkie. I mean, it was like, I would go up north, my husband would go up north, and if I couldn't get news in or whatever, I'd say, hey, we're going up to the bar, they have cable. At least I know I can get CNN. I mean, but now it's like, and I'm starting to feel so much better. I just getting away from it and just being with like-minded people has been helping to make me, because to me it seemed like it was a challenge, like just to go day to day for lately. And my word of hope is sunshine today. We haven't had that for quite a few days, and it's just wonderful. And I think it's God's little wink to us that us being here He has work for us to do.
Hello, my name is Jeff Hill. Say the ministries, I've been on vestry, I'm an EM, I've been, I guess you have to say, I'm a beginner for the stewardship. I belong to Trinity Belleville, and to you about Worcester, Ohio, I'm familiar with that, trust me. I know exactly where you at. All right. The challenges that we face, and I'm listening to what everybody has been saying here, and I made a little note right here. I seem like we have a theme going around right now, that everybody, we doing the same old thing over and over and over again. And what that leads me into is a challenge that we have. After a while, you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. It get old, and the people that you're doing it to, it get old with them, and then they don't want to participate. So we had to challenge them and explain to them, and that's why I'm here to learn stewardship, because I'm a beginner, and I want to help my church out wholly so that we could go ahead and go. But one good thing that I can say about our church, we have a new priest there. He's full-time with us, and since he's been there over a year, we are increasing in our population because we lost a lot of people. All right, and that's something that's going around with churches. It's not just the Episcopal Church, it's every church here in the United States. Thank you.
I already introduced myself, but I'm Ellen Ekavog. I am the canon to the ordinary in the Diocese of Michigan. Before coming here to Michigan, I spent 15 years in the parish in a variety of dioceses, Kentucky, Chicago, now here. And a challenge that I face is that I have some churches that don't even do any stewardship. I'm really glad all of you are here. I just want to thank you. This warms my heart. And also, just getting people to be like, this is a thing you can do. And I think a lot of it is about fear about talking about money, right? Which is cultural. And so TENS has really helped, I think, with my own ministry with that. I just want to say my word of hope is like, guys, for those of you, I'm here for you. Like, my job, my reason for existence is to support your ministries. So never hesitate to reach out. And my other good news is I have a core belief that there is something working at every one of our congregations and that we can always build on a strength. So, do you guys want to, Julia, TENS board, do you want to? Sorry.
Thanks, Ellen. My name is Julia McCrae Goldsmith. I am the recently retired Dean of Trinity Cathedral in San Jose, but I continue to be on a choose your own ministry adventure. And one of my adventures right now is working with Episcopal Latino ministry. I've had bilingual parishes for years and years in different settings. And so I bring a perspective of how do we invite generosity in multilingual and multicultural settings. That is a challenge, but I've got to tell you, that is my word of hope as well. It's just amazing if sometimes a puzzle to work with the whole body of Christ, worshiping in one place, often in multiple languages, and yet there is the beauty of the Imago Dei in that kind of a community.
I would say if you are new to stewardship or you feel new to stewardship, peace be with you. I remember, when I left my law practice to come to work at the cathedral in San Diego as the director of stewardship, the first thing I did when I sat down, the intercom came over and said, "Chris, we need an article on stewardship for the newsletter. We're getting ready for the campaign. Can you get that out? We need it by 5 o'clock today." Sure. Pull out the computer, Google, what is stewardship? Literally, I was at that level. TENS did come to the rescue about the technique and all that. But one thing that we're all experts in is the thing that Henry Nouwen tries to remind us about at every turn. If you ever read the book, The Spirituality of Fundraising, it's a little read. I highly recommend. Great book. And in that, he reminds us that an invitation to give is at its heart an invitation to belong. And so this business that we're going to focus on today of shining our light on our mission and the impact we're having in this world, and to tease those stories out when we don't know about them, because trust me, they're there. The other half of that coin is to invite people into that mission so that they have a sense of belonging, a sense of partnership, a sense of that they're invested in it. If you can do those two things, and then the other three are trust and leadership, ask and thank, those 5, you can be an expert in stewardship, and that's my word of hope. At this cathedral in San Diego, our stewardship committee quickly became known as the fun committee because we became known as throwing parties, celebrating that mission, sharing that story, and inviting people to participate in it. That was our secret sauce, and it's been the secret sauce wherever I've gone, so it works.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Deborah Bennett, rector at Church of Our Savior in Akron, Ohio. I'm a member of the board, this wonderful, wonderful group of people who are passionate about stewardship. And I'm originally from New York. But God called me to Akron. The good challenge that we have is reimagining our building to meet the ever expanding clothing and food need. And so to reimagine our building as a resource partner in our community. And my word of hope is God is always about the new thing. Can you not perceive it?
Hi, I'm Amy Underhill Lythgoe. I am the rector at St. Luke's in Denver, Colorado, and very pleased to be a member of this amazing board and organization. Just very grateful because I never know where to put myself on the scale of how much I know. And community is so inspiring, right? We have so much wisdom in this room, and I'm so grateful for opportunities to gather, to just have these conversations. One of the things that I particularly appreciate from Nadia Bowles-Weber, who is a Lutheran pastor, theologian, author, she talks about that church isn't perfect, it's practice. And I think that we can always remember that, these opportunities to practice what it looks like, to ask, to have the hard conversations, to talk about money, to talk about things in the world that maybe are challenging. And so, yes, there's a lot of fear, whether it is money or the world or creation or what's going to happen tomorrow. There's also a lot of faith. And these opportunities to come into community, to practice what it means to follow Jesus, and to offer that when we leave our doors out into the world. So I'm so pleased y'all came here today and that you are willing to practice so that you can take that back to your communities.
Hi, my name is Sabeth Fitzgibbons. I'm the rector at Trinity Parish in Seattle. And I consider myself an advanced beginner at stewardship. I have, in my 18 years of ministry, have served 6 congregations, I think, sometimes as an interim, intentionally or not, which means I've started over and over and over and over, and often entered into a congregation in September where there was no plan for any kind of a fall pledge campaign. TENS has rescued me more than once. Current challenge is similar to what Deborah said about how our being good stewards of our property. Trinity is an urban congregation in a historic church building. And so we are always and continually having that conversation alongside all of the other ones that we are practicing about how will we pay our bills and all of those things I don't have to tell you about. A word of hope, I think, is our theme for this coming year, which is tell out my soul. Tell out my soul the greatness of the Lord, and that is the story of gratitude.
My name is Dina Van Claveren. I am Canon for Development and Stewardship and Congregational Vitality in the Diocese of Maryland. I've been in that position for about a year now. Before that, I was rector of a congregation for 15 years and then also a second partnered congregation. So as we've gone around, I've had time to do some math. I think I've done 23 pledge campaigns between camping conference centers, multiple congregations, beginning with a congregation that could come up with everything on their own, fresh, and then becoming priest in charge of a congregation that really needed to turn to TENS and have something ready to go. So I feel like I've run the gamut. I still would say, veteran sounds like you know everything, but I feel, for me, it feels a little battle weary. Maybe I will say veteran. And it's really wonderful to work with so many congregations now as canon. Like you, I see congregations that have zero stewardship practices in place. So I think the challenge that I'm facing in my role is to help folks that, it feels like right brain, left brain. Some folks really do the business practices really well, and some do the theological, spiritual conversation practices, but they don't ever get to the business. And these folks, and just to have the connective tissue in congregations around those pieces. My word of hope What I know about doing the work of stewardship authentically in my own heart and with my own family, with my husband and children, is that the good news of learning generosity and modeling our lives after the generosity of God not only changes my relationship with money in a really good and healthy way, it enhances my ability to be in relationships better, whether I'm forgiven or forgiving, whether I'm sharing something or caring for my father in his illness. That generosity that can start with a conversation about money can just grow and take over all aspects of our lives. It's my good news.
My name is Kevin Dixon. I'm a recently returned parish priest after 10 years of work in international development agencies. I work in the Diocese of Huron in southwestern Ontario. I am a patriotic citizen of the sovereign nation of Canada who is very grateful for the long-standing friendship with the United States and between the Anglican and Episcopal churches. My first engagement with TENS was in the early 90s when I attended one of the big conferences in Buffalo. And what really moved me at that conference was the storytelling, when people would stand and tell their stewardship testimony. In 1997, I was an unrelated bone marrow donor to an anonymous recipient. And that was really the light bulb for me about holistic stewardship. I always thought that language of being washed in the blood of the Lamb was really gross, until I became a bone marrow donor and realized what a difference that blood was making to somebody else's life, and all of the metaphors and the imageries that went with it, and it informed my stewardship ministry for years after that. So I went to a bunch of those conferences, and when I was a priest in Vancouver, I chaired the stewardship committee, and we hosted one of those conferences at that time. I think a challenge that I see is bringing together the best practices of fundraising from the not-for-profit sector that I've been in the past 10 years with the holistic practices of stewardship that we reflect in the church. And part of that is about constituent relations management that's truly relational but doesn't lose track of the details. And so I think a lot of not-for-profits have good CRMs, constituent relation management platforms that they use, and I think the church could learn from that, and I want to bring that to my ministry now. The word of hope is one that I try to repeat to myself, Philippians 4:13. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us.
I'm Susan Larson, and I'm at Christ Church, Detroit. I'm relatively new there, but I've been in Episcopal churches throughout my adult and pre-adult life. I'm probably between a beginner and an intermediate in stewardship. I'm on the stewardship committee there. The challenge that our parish faces in terms of stewardship is converting givers to pledgers. We can't get across the idea, and this is the only parish that I've been involved in where this is an issue, but we have very generous parishioners, but it does not always translate to a pledge. We just had a very successful stewardship campaign, and we're hoping that will maybe get people to realize you gave for that. Maybe you can up your pledge or become a pledger going forward. And my word of hope, it's something that Dana and Mike sort of brought together too, is just connection. Before you can build a community, you need to make a connection. I mean, even just being here. I've been to Worcester, Ohio, your parish, and I just got my thank you note from my visit for contributing to their pet pantry. I mean, it's just, you just never know who you meet and how someone can change your life or what can change your life, and that's my word.
I'm Todd Townsend. I'm also from the Diocese of Huron and the Anglican Church of Canada. So happy to be here. Happy to hear your positive reaction to Kevin's claim for Canada's sovereignty. I'm bishop in the Diocese of Huron, so my experience with stewardship through work in parish ministry and in theological education is around resourcing ministry, but it's also, from my experience, the area that is a lot of fun. It is also a place of real spiritual growth. So for the congregations in our diocese where this is does not get a lot of attention or get any attention, I really want to help kindle that and give them resources so they can hit the ground running and feel the benefits of it pretty quickly at all levels. But there are also some places in our diocese where it's been done well. So I don't feel like this is going to be hard work, but it does take that rekindling. So that's the challenge. And I think the word of hope, of course, is that God is generous. We have a generous God, and that's the place we start.
My name's Andra O'Neill. I'm also from the Diocese of Huron, and I'm a priest there. I was ordained just about 5 years ago, so in my previous life, I did work in the investment business, and I was a chair of a stewardship committee in our diocese, so 20-something years ago. And it was mildly received in the diocese, the idea of stewardship. I really felt I wasn't quite connecting even with the leadership, and honestly, I think over time it led me to pursue a degree in divinity because I was missing a piece of the conversation about stewardship, and I had a feeling it was theological. That is one piece of the becoming a priest, as you would know, anyone who's gone through that. Most of it was God not allowing me to do anything else. Returning to stewardship, though, being a parish priest, has really been a gift. I've been on the stewardship committee of our diocese for a number of years, and we have sort of just entered into a renewal of stewardship focus in the diocese. One of our greatest challenges is one of the particular Canadian cultural specialties is a real resistance to speaking about money of any kind. Having come from a background in the world of money, I just sort of blast out talk about money all the time. And so in my parishes, it's been fine because everyone forgives me because of that background I had. But we really are just opening the conversation. For me, this is an act of spiritual life. I really don't believe we'll get where we want to be with stewardship if we aren't able to help people see that this is living out discipleship, and the joy that comes from sacrificial giving, the joy that comes from giving first to God. And that's a tall task, as you all know. You're all working on this, but it is a very satisfying task and allows those givers to be witnesses. I think the word of hope is just the impact it has on probably each of you and me as well when a gift is received unexpectedly, undesignated from someone you least expect to give a gift, and you realize how God is working in people, how the inspiration and trust in the community exists when a gift arrives that you don't expect, and reminds us to remember those people as our witnesses. That our stewardship committee isn't always the voices that need to be put forward, but those witnesses that are giving quietly. So we're delighted to be here with you and hear your stories today.
Hi, I'm Tanya Phibbs. I'm also from the Diocese of Huron, where I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of the Diocese. In terms of beginner, I'd say maybe more intermediate, though there's a very real difference in some ways between the role of the diocese and the role in parishes. Probably more beginner in the role of the diocese in terms of stewardship work. A challenge, I think, that I face, that our diocese faces, is helping churches not only grasp that they ought to do stewardship, but that they can do it. I've had 3 parish leaders, wardens and or rectors say in the last 3 weeks, when asked when the last time they had an intentional conversation about stewardship in their parish, tell me that doesn't work here. And so how do we give them some hope and belief in themselves that they can actually do this work, because they're the ones who have to do it on the ground? The word of hope is that there is a lot that can still be done. We are just in some ways always beginning, I think, the work of stewardship. And so there's so much potential and so much ability for our parishes, for our diocese to grow in this, that only good things can come out of that in the end, that we will get ahead. It just might take a little longer than we want.
Anyone else?
Thank you all for doing that. Like good Episcopalians, we took a little longer to introduce ourselves than we might have put into the agenda, but that's not a problem, because what we did there was tell stories. Did you hear all those stories? And this is part of the model that we'll be talking about today, and I'm so encouraged by what I've heard already. As my friend Amy comes up to join me for the beginning of our presentation, I want to talk about a couple of the things that I heard from where you are sitting. I heard a lot about if we do it the same way every time, we're going to get the same results, right? We know this, the definition of insanity. So let's try some things that are new. Stewardship is about change. It's about transformation. It's about creation. And you can try something new. And if it doesn't work this year, you could try something different the next year. So don't be afraid to try something new and to pick up some of those ideas. And if you get the TENS packet and you throw it in the trash, you'll pick it up next year, and maybe it's time. What we're going to talk about today is, of course, TENS, and you can run it with any model of stewardship package or idea that you have. So while we think we do some pretty good resources, we also want you to develop some best practices about stewardship. So that'll be a part of our work today. I heard another great thing. We don't like to talk about money in church. And now you're all here. You like to talk about money in church. You're the special unicorns that do like to talk about money in church. And we're going to be practicing some of that today. We're going to be talking a little bit about how we can break down some of those barriers that we've set up in our culture between faith and money, and how we handle that. So we're going to take the next hour to do this work, a little bit of presentation and a little bit of practice, and then we'll have some lunch. I know that the coffee might be at its point where it needs to exit you, so if you need to use the facilities at any time, please do that as you're... Yeah. So let's start off with, some news before we get into our hope. And this won't be news to most of us who have been in the church for the last few years, but we're in some decline. We're experiencing some decline. At least that's what those parochial reports tell us. They tell us that there are fewer people and maybe some less money and maybe not as many people on Sundays. But then, I hear your stories, and your stories aren't alone. There are lots of things that those parochial reports don't capture. The signs of hope, the signs of life, the signs of new things. So let's talk about the fact that while we might be experiencing some decline in paper, and sometimes in our congregations we see fewer people in the pews than there used to be, we are also doing some great things. So in the same period of time, we've seen an increase in the number of contributions and the increase in the average pledge amount. So fewer people giving more money. Sustainable or not sustainable? So we need to do some things to reverse that trend. While we're on the topic of trends, you may have seen this chart or others like it. This comes from the Giving USA report that gets put out every year. I haven't put in the new one that just came out a couple weeks ago. But since 1982, giving to religion goes up, but at a different rate. So it's not climbing at the same rate that it used to. You can see how it used to really move up, and now it's at this sort of not so high rate anymore. This is giving to all religion and religious institutions. And the real news here is that we're losing our market share as church. Our nonprofit siblings are doing a great job at getting their message out, at asking for money, at talking about planned gifts, at communicating their impact, and churches are not doing as well. And so in the last 40 years, church represents that top bar, that dark tan color. And you can see how church giving has gone from what it was, almost 58%, down to 29%. Still the highest level of giving in the United States, but 50% less than it used to be. That's something to pay attention to. And it's another one of those things that when we find nonprofit partners that are doing really good work at getting their message out, we should pay attention because they've got something there. They're talking to their members and their donors about how their gifts matter and how that gift has impact. So how can we reverse some of these trends? And that's what we're going to be spending the rest of our day talking about. The first thing is do stewardship. So for those congregations that haven't done it in a while or are doing the same thing over and over again, it's time to run a different kind of campaign. Shake things up a little. Make certain that we are diversifying the ways that we can give. And that does include people who don't want to pledge but do want to give. People who are giving online, offline, checks, QR codes. As many ways as your treasurers, mostly volunteers, can handle systems to gather money, offer those systems to your congregations because it will really help them and your members engage. This is called donor-centric, right? Where we meet the donor where they are and we make it easy for them to engage with us. Include more voices. So if your stewardship work doesn't look like the makeup of your congregation, then we need to include more voices in the stories that we tell. This is really important. Diversity and inclusion matters. We want to see ourselves in leadership. We want to see ourselves in the stories that are told. And so make certain that your stewardship work reflects your community, the community you're serving, and the community of people who gather. And finally, it's okay to talk about money in church. Do you know who talked about money a lot in ministry? Right? 40% of the parables are about money, stuff, and our attachments to them. 16 out of the 40 parables, right? So if Jesus could talk about money so much, can't we do this? Isn't this a part of our work? So do this. We can do it. I see people taking pictures of slides, which I love. And I want to remind you right now that you will get all the slides sent to you via email. And we're being recorded, too. So you'll get a recording of this session. Thanks to Christ Church Cranbrook for having amazing facilities that allow us to record and send things. So take all the notes you want, but you'll also be getting these slides. Let's talk a little bit about what TENS wants to do this year in storytelling. And I want to remind you right now that TENS does all of its materials in English and in Spanish. One day we will reach yet even more languages, but our budget hasn't grown to that place yet. But this comes from the idea of what is your good news, the good news that is so exciting that it is bursting out of you, that you are ready to sing, that you are ready to tell it, that you are ready to share it. That's what happens with Mary when she tells out her soul and proclaims the goodness of the Lord. This idea that we have something within us that we want to share, what is it? Is it something you love about your church? Is it something you love about the way your gift impacts people outside your church and your community. What is the story that makes you so excited? Maybe it's your personal connection to your church, the friends that you've made, the people that you know. Whatever it is, we're going to give you tools today to help you hone that story and be able to tell that story, because that's what inspires other people to share their gifts as you're sharing yours. Tell out my soul. Our theme hangs on that this year. So here's some best practice on what we can do to run really good campaigns. And the first is to make certain that you take the time it takes to be organized and ready to run your campaign. Now, if you identify your campaign chair in September and you're starting your campaign in September, and that's all you got, that's all you got. We'll be with you, we'll walk with you, we have resources to do that. But the earlier you start, the more intention you can give to this, the more time you have to settle this work in your community, the more success you'll have. And so implement online tools, make certain that people have a way to give online and offline. Make certain your website works and your donation form. Our resource library at tens.org has a little sheet on how you can create a great donation form. And we have many examples of some good ones. We have some clunkers up there too, things not to do. So we have some options for you to look at. Make certain that you implement and use our resource library to help you do that. Make certain you connect. I heard connection as one of the through lines in a lot of our stories. When we don't reach out and let people know that we're doing something, how can they join us in doing it? If that's your campaign, if that's the good news, if that's a new ministry that you want to talk about, make certain you're telling your members that campaign is starting, that this is an opportunity to do it, and don't hide that message. I've seen so many well-intentioned stewardship leaders stand up in church and say, "It's that time of year again." When I'm going to disrupt your programming to talk about money. And the connection just isn't there, right? And so don't do that, please. I want you to be the fun committee and realize that stewardship is a part of our work. It's not in absence of the work we do in liturgy or in theology or in formation of our community. Make sure your campaign gets lots of hype. If you need help designing your brochure, your website, we have lots of tools on our website to help you. You can always email me and call me, and I'll take a look at your materials. I read so many stewardship letters every year. I love it. I have a red pen. I send it back. So keep going. I will help you write a great stewardship letter if you don't use one of our samples, which we also have for you. Make certain that everyone is contacted. And that's everyone who's appropriate, right? There are some pastoral reasons we might not reach out to everyone. Know that. Check in with your clergy and your pastoral care team to know who's in your congregation and where they're at. But make certain that everyone knows and gets a chance to be communicated with. We don't want to leave anyone out. Oh, they never pledge. Oh, they're not going to be interested. Don't make that decision for them. We're going to talk a little later about how, when we're talking about money, don't assume that because you think somebody's having a bad year, that you shouldn't approach them for a gift. Maybe they have gifts to share. And so when we make the decision for them, they don't have that opportunity. So contact everyone. And then wrap your whole campaign in prayer and reflection. And this is something you can do whether you've had months to plan it or moments to plan it. We know how to stop and pray and breathe deeply and think about what we're doing. Encourage your members to have that conversation about what we're doing with our money around the dinner table before they fill out their pledge form. And in fact, when I hand out pledge forms, when I talk to people about their gift, I say, let's pray about that. Let's stop let's stop the ask. Let's stop the solicitation right now, and let's dwell with this for a moment. And then push on. Maybe that takes a day or a week. Maybe that's the pen's right in their hand. But take that intentional moment to reflect on it. And we provide resources in our campaign weekly so that you can read something great. We're going to have some really good stories this year that are based around music and art and creativity. And I think probably a Spotify list that goes along with it. And so we want you to engage those and ask the questions and then reflect on it. Wrap up your campaign in prayer. We give you these weekly inserts, which you can use. And so there are going to be weekly and seasonal inserts that you can put into your bulletin. These are theological reflections that pose an interesting question that get you thinking about your response. How do you respond to God's generosity, to the beauty that you see, to the stories that are being told around you? They relate the gospel, the good news, to our stories and how we connect with that. And then they pose a question that you can use in a small group forum or in a rector's forum, or just take home and think about it before you go to bed. They showcase diversity. This is something very intentional that TENS has been working on for the last several years. I asked you to make certain that your stewardship work is diverse. We also want to make sure that our work is diverse. And so our stories that we're collecting this year are from all kinds of people, church people, not church people, of all kinds of different groups and constituencies. We want people to feel included and know that their story is something that we can all learn from. Offer these reflections perhaps in your rector's forum or in a Wednesday night group or in something that you might lead during stewardship. These are designed also to be lay-led. So you don't need to have a collar to run stewardship. You don't need to have gone to seminary to know how to ask people to reflect deeply about something. You can have those conversations. We give you the tools to do it. And finally, before I hand it over to my friend Amy to talk about some other things, I want to talk about one more piece that's really helpful to have in your toolkit for resources on stewardship, and that's a narrative budget. This doesn't discount your line item budget, which we have to have. We appreciate it. But TENS has given you a tool on our website to translate that Excel document into a storytelling format that puts those fixed costs above and puts them into each ministry column. So it's going to take a little bit of clergy time, building time, utilities, insurance to run your children's program, your family and outreach, your community program, your all of your shows, all of the things that you do. So present your narrative in that way. The numbers still add up to the same figures at the bottom, but people are then told a story about how the money is received and how the money is spent. We use pie charts, and we tell you how to do that as well, so that people can see how the money comes in. It's very transparent, and how the money goes out. And you use however many ministry categories that you want, make them easy so that people can see. This is what it really takes to have church. This is what it really takes to have a youth program. This is what it really takes to reach out to our community, or whatever your categories are. This is a great way to help people see impact. When a member sees that their gift matters and has impact, they then see the benefit in giving it and sharing their time and talent and treasure. We're rolling out some new words for that, but it's not ready to go yet. So stay tuned for some triple R's. And we have W's too. We have wealth, works, and wisdom. We have time, talent, treasure. We're going to have something else too. Stay tuned.
So as we've already experienced this morning, as Davey pointed out, we know that hearing one another's stories helps us. right? It helps us connect, it helps us understand, it helps encourage us as we find our own way through our own stories. And so there's no better way to communicate these things than by telling the story of who we are, our lived experiences, and tying that to our generosity, our giving, and our resources. But you may know Brene Brown, and she talked about that we are hardwired for story. You know, Jesus demonstrated that to us, right? The parables are there for a reason. We find ourselves in stories even when the story is not necessarily about us. I think that's why literature is so meaningful and impactful, scripture, and we want to utilize that in our giving. There are lots of different opportunities for telling stories and inviting folks to tell us that and then creating spaces for really listening to them. So one of the things that we want to help you and us do is find ways to tell our stories so they tell the story of me, and they tell the story of us, and they tell the story of now. That was something that Julia brought to our board this week, and these narrative spaces in which we then form collective stories through the hearing and the telling, through the feedback that we receive, and then the opportunities to figure out not just what is the story of now, but then the dream of what is next. And dreaming is good for us. God's people have dreamed throughout time of what God sees as possible. We know that creation was formed and it was very good. And so how are we going to live into that dream of goodness and sweetness so that we can help bring that to fulfillment in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and in the world? One of the things that we want to do is encourage you to not just think about giving as stewardship giving for that 1 year or that season, but to think of it in terms of a lifetime of giving. We give in so many ways. We show up, we help, we make the coffee, we maybe usher. I heard stories of all the different ways that the people in this room are showing up for their people. And we want to remind everyone that giving is something that we do across our lives and even after we have died, so that we are offering to continue to forward the good work of the places that we love beyond the season of our time here on earth. And so we want to encourage you to make planned giving a part of your process, to really encourage folks, because those become the seeds that undergird the work. And I can say that at St. Luke's, we've been blessed and surprised by a few folks who did planned giving because we did not have a program set up, it's my understanding. And those gifts then became the seed of an endowment that even in our fear of what's going to happen when there aren't as many bodies in the pews or pew sitters, is we have money that the faithfulness, the trust, and the belief in the work and the mission of St. Luke's can provide to the world, so that when our boiler went out this December, amazingly, we had the money to rebuild the boiler. There wasn't a panic of we're going to be wearing our coats until May, And so we really want to encourage folks to remember that we love these places and these people, and we want to make sure it is still here for other folks to continue to love beyond our time, and for the community and the places that we serve to know that they can count on us even when, I am no longer here, but my children or my children's children or whomever else walks in the door is available. There's also virtual stewardship, and we want you to consider all of the ways, not just the pledge card that comes in or the dollar bills that are put in the plate. That doesn't tend to happen as much anymore, and yet everyone's probably got their phone. And most of us have the kind of phone that allows us to have a QR code put somewhere, whether it's in the order of service or a card on the back of the pews, to make it a sign as you walk in the door, to make giving part of the culture of the community and to make it easy. To speak the language and the stories of everyone who appears and to welcome their giving however they would like to do it. We also want to maximize every opportunity that we have for giving by publicizing and implementing our campaigns in multiple ways, by reminding folks that if you have reached an age where you have a required minimum distribution in the U.S. Savings system, that that money can be given with no tax consequence to other nonprofits. And guess what? Our churches count. And that is often money that is, for many folks, unbudgeted funds in their system. Now, not for everybody, but at least a portion of that. And it makes it so easy because it can just flow. If they don't touch it, they don't get taxed. Now, if it does go into their accounts, then it will get taxed if they then write us a check or give it to us. And I'm going to stop there and let other folks who know more about that explain it to you. But that's one example, just these transfers and other things where we have bill pay, you can have a website option, all sorts of things that will really help make giving feel easy and make giving feel as though you are making a difference, however you choose to do it. There are also other revenue streams. As Davey mentioned, our nonprofit partners out in communities do a fantastic job at this. Before my ordained life, one of the things I did is I was a special events director for United Cerebral Palsy. And we did things like country line dances to make money and fun runs and, all sorts of things. We don't think about doing those things as churches, and I'm not saying that we need to. But as you're in your car and maybe you're listening to PBS and the campaign and hearing all of the different opportunities that they provide, or maybe you have a grocery store in your area that if you sign up, they will give you a portion of everyone's spending. One thing that we ended up doing at St. Luke's, very surprisingly, a parishioner came to me and suggested he had heard on the radio about donating your car that you no longer need. And he was willing, so he did all the research and checked it out, and we partnered with another nonprofit that we had already been partnering with that does a lot of services in our community. They already had a system established, and what happens is when someone's car, either they no longer need it, maybe they can't drive anymore and there's no one to give it to, they don't want to sell it, or if you're in a car wreck and your car is totaled, this organization will still take it. And what happens is we had nothing to do with it. We had our first check arrive, and we had heard someone had had a car wreck. Oh, my car was totaled. She thought to contact this organization, and a check for $1,100 appeared one day. And, manna from heaven, right? And so just these really creative, different, unusual ways of making money. We can use some of that joy and creative energy that we have and also maximize on the stories that other people are telling to see how they may fit our context. And this comes up with, then we get to that idea of difficult topics, right? Money is a hard thing to talk about. There are a few things that sadly, I think most of our families didn't teach us how to do them. And talking about money, budgeting even, spending money, all of those things, most of us, I imagine, did not have long-term conversations in our families, either as children or with our own children. And even among our spouses, they talk about the people with whom we're partnered, money causes the most fights. It's not surprising that it is a source of tension and some concern in our parishes because most of us don't have joyful experiences of talking about money. And so we practice, right? Pastor Nadia told us, church is not perfect, it's practice. We're probably not going to do it really beautifully, perfectly the first or second time, and we practice. Each time we do it, it gets a little bit easier. And we're doing that beautiful thing of modeling for one another how to have these conversations that then maybe they can have in their own contexts with their own families and the people they love, including things like planned giving. That's part of this whole conversation about being faithful stewards when we are gone and how we are setting up our families, our estates, so that they support others. So keeping the conversations positive are really good, and recognizing that we don't have to have the answers. We just are hoping to create spaces of welcome and care for the listening and the discussion. The challenges in stewardship, of course, is, families can carry a lot of, or individuals can carry a lot of strong feelings, messages they've heard about how they should be giving, what they should be doing, what it should look like. And all of those shoulds can be quite a heavy weight for us and a burden. And so we want to remember that this should be a point of upliftment and joy. This should be part of our gratitude and the stories that we tell as people of faith, that we believe that God does provide and has provided. It does not mean times are always easy. And yet there are ways to show up and make a difference and to love and care for our communities financially, just as our communities at times have probably loved and cared for us by showing up with meals or rides to cars or visits to the hospital or funeral services and weddings. And so relationship is a two-way street, and we want to remind folks that when we are in relationship, things need to flow, right? We are not looking for members who are not interested in engaging with us in those stories of relationship. That was maybe a harsh way to say it, but I would say not that we're not looking, but we are eager for. We long for relationship. When someone shows up in our doors, we are hopeful that we are going to end up getting to know someone that we are so grateful has joined us in the body of Christ. And part of that conversation is what can we do to contribute in their walk with God, and how will they then in turn contribute to how we together are fulfilling our mission for God within our context. We also need to keep our conversations focused on the mission. I know it can be really tempting, and sometimes we do it out of our own discomfort and fear of laughing about, well, we got to keep the lights on, we've got to do this, the parking lot needs to be repaved, we need to do all these things to keep the water running and all of that. And it is true, it's true. We need to be good stewards of our spaces. That's not the bigger conversation. It's not inspiring, right? Okay, the lights do need to be on, or maybe we just sit near a window. What we actually want to be doing is making sure, do we know who we are? Why are we here as a community of faith? What is God's dream and call to us? And how are we going to utilize all of our resources, our money, to make sure we are living into that vision of who we believe we are and what part of the body we are, how we are serving as what part of the body. And so focusing on our mission is much more inspirational and a more interesting story to hear and to tell. And so asking folks to kind of share those stories can be really helpful. We also want to, as we focused on today, make sure we're talking about our hope for the future and not just our concerns or our fears. We want to be focused on our faith. I think, and this may really cause some angst for some people, I believe that a not balanced budget is a faithful budget, because you're leaving room for God's work, for the Holy Spirit to swoop in and show up in unexpected ways. Again, at St. Luke's, we never would have wanted the dear person who died to have died last year. Were we exceptionally grateful to him and his estate for giving us the money to repair the boiler? Yes, we were. the Holy Spirit works in ways that are beyond our understanding, and we can hold that tension of sorrow and joy, fear and faith, concern or doubt and hope. And so we need to keep showing up in our communities, even as the financial leaders, holding those tensions so that we give permission for our people to do them too. I think the unspoken fears are the fears that get too big for us. When we talk about our fears, we can settle down, we can calm down, and we can start talking about, well, what's the solution? What do we want to do about that? And we can join together in that. And one of the things to do that, of course, is appreciative inquiry. How many folks in this room know kind of that process or that term? Okay, well, that makes me feel a little better because it's fairly new for me too. But appreciative inquiry, one of the easy ways to think of it is focusing on what we want versus what we don't want. When my kids were little and in elementary school, we called it a PBS, positive behavior support, in their schools. And the teachers and parents were all encouraged to focus on the behaviors that we wanted to see more of and to basically not pay a lot of attention to the things that we didn't want to. So rather than saying, please stop interrupting, please stop interrupting, please stop interrupting, saying instead, I am so thankful, like you are doing such a good job sitting and listening to my words. And I really appreciate how respectful you're being, and now it's your turn to talk. Thank you for doing that. I will do that for you. It's the same thing that we can be doing in our churches, positive behavior support, or another way I heard it is that worrying is like praying for what we don't want. Worrying is like praying for what we don't want. We're pouring all of our energy into the negative outcome as opposed to pouring our hearts and our imagination and our energy into our faithfulness of what could be. It's hard. That is a big practice point for me and a great opportunity again for us to practice together, to focus on the positive and to appreciate and to also uplift and remind others how they are showing up for our communities. So when you use the reflections that Davey pointed out, that if you choose to in TENS, this slide shows some options for some of the ways you can engage with them in appreciative inquiry. That's kind of a hard word or phrase. And so these are just some ideas, and you get the slide deck, so you don't need to worry about jotting it all down. But there are lots of ways to practice being appreciative, to practice not worrying and being positive, to practice finding solutions together as opposed to feeling alone or you need that one person who's going to save the day. And just to remember that because we are in this together, the stories that we have to share and tell become the stories of us and the stories of now and then the story of our future and our tomorrow together. So what we would like to do is offer you the chance to practice asking. And we put up a couple of scenarios here, and it's just an opportunity to get into some small groups and practice having these hard conversations together and seeing how it feels. How does it feel to be the person who is doing the asking? What felt easy? What felt hard? How did it feel to be the one hearing the ask? What would have worked differently for you? Where did you see something done really well? And another thing that we learned in our storytelling is the feedback makes all the difference. Not only the practicing, but the opportunities to distill the story and to practice so it becomes something that flows from us, and that flow continues to come back to us in return. So I'm going to pass it back to Davey for that.
Great. In a couple of minutes, we're going to break up into some groups, and that means moving around a little bit. And we're going to take the rest of our time until lunch, which is about 25 minutes, to break up into 3 groups. we asked you about beginner, intermediate, and veteran for a reason. Because we're going to ask you to sort of self-identify and move. And we're going to have 3 spaces to do that. I see, we're going to keep the largest group, whoever that is, in this room. We're going to move a group into that door, through that door, not into the door. And then we're going to meet across the atrium over there. So we're going to, how many beginner folks would you think we have? Okay. How many intermediate folks? Okay. And veterans? Look at you. Look at you. We have 3. Okay. Oh, good. Right. Okay. Well, then the veterans are going to earn their great reward on those comfortable chairs across the atrium. We can bring chairs in. But before we move, our host would like to say a few words. And Bill, we're so happy to be here, so thank you. And our committee.
Thank you. My name is Bill Danaher. I'm the rector of Christ Church Cranbrook. Been here about 10 years, and there's never a day when I'm not humbled to be the rector here. And so blessed to have each and every one of you here. I'm incredibly blessed to have TENS here. I've had dinner with the board, and they're just remarkable people, each and every one of them. I'm so glad that you have the chance to get to know them. I'm going to be hanging around for lunch because it's really good. It's baked potatoes. And I've been asked to give a tour of the church. The sanctuary is not to be missed. And it's something that, in terms of telling the story, one of the things that I did is I learned to parse every parcel of that incredible nave. And that's part of the way you enter into a place, as you know. So I'd be honored to tell you a little bit about that. And also, any questions around capital campaigns. One of the things that I did a lot of over the past few years is do that, and we've been remarkably blessed. I'm really grateful to Father Chris for his incredible leadership in our annual stewardship. He's amazing. I'm really grateful to the stewardship committee, who are all volunteers, who came together. And they provided the lunch. Everything is homemade. Everything is wonderful. And it's a bit like how we roll. We look fancy, but we're really not. So I'm so grateful for them and for taking time to do that, and so proud of them. And that's it. So there you go. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. We will join you all for lunch in about 20 minutes after we do some small group work. So thank you, chili cookers. All right, so we have some need to move some chairs. There's a pile of them standing next to Chris in that little cubby. We can move some chairs into this room. Veterans over there, beginners in here, and I think the intermediate group was the largest, so y'all can stay. Beginners in there.
of the